Hello, I'm Dr. Angela.
And I'm Candace.
And we are the hosts of the Just Be Real Sis podcast.
Yes, we are. Do you guys believe in the power of collaboration over competition? We do. Why? Because we're two successful women who know that we are an unstoppable force, especially when we align and focus on what really matters most in life.
And so we live our lives this way every single day because we know that the most impactful outcome is a collective win. We believe that women can and should win together.
We understand that growth and success, that they're the goals. And we love to live boldly, we love to live authentically, and we live unapologetically.
So we encourage you to do the same. We embrace our strength, but we also respect our vulnerability. We provide a safe space for ourselves and for others to be genuine, to be celebrated, but most importantly, to be valued.
And we never miss a chance to use our voices to highlight people and issues that align with our mission of authenticity and commitment to humanity, because it isn't about being impressive, it's about being impactful.
And so we understand the need for real conversations from diverse perspectives because we're more alike than we are different. And when we share our stories, we create the opportunity for mutual understanding and alignment.
And guess what? We know that inclusion and honesty, that there are superpowers.
And so we don't build walls, we tear them down.
The only requirement to join us is just be real, sis.
Well, welcome back to Just Be Real Sis. This is a very special episode because we are going to do a year in review in a year like we've never seen before. So before we get into that, I want to say, hey, sis, we are at the end of 2020. We made it.
Can you believe it?
Can you believe it?
Oh my goodness.
We are sitting here, and I told sis, as we're telling you now, that we find ourselves in this very unique place in time. And so we wanted to make sure that we captured this moment on the podcast because we are navigating through a global pandemic, but we are still moving forward. The things that we've learned this year, I think, will carry with us from now on. And so we want to make sure that we take the opportunity to just reflect on this year and talk about some of the things that we learned and experienced as we navigated through something that has been literally unprecedented. So, sis, I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm excited because a year in reflection, to think that, we've gone through so much and we've seen so much this year, a year like no other. But when we go back and look, it's been amazing.
Oh my goodness. I think
Oh,
it's been the best. I think it's been the best. It has just gotten better and better. Every single episode has just gotten just more and more impactful. And I think it is because, first of all, we're blessed to know a lot of amazing people, but also because we have been very intentional around what we put out there for our listeners, especially this year. And so you and I were looking through the list of guests that we've had this year, and I think it was even amazing to us. The people that have been here with us this year.
he said we've talked to all of those phenomenal people. Oh my goodness, and learned so much along the way. And to think when we started to do this podcast, there was doubt, and we didn't let it creep in. There was just uncertainty of what it would bring and who would we be able to reach. And look at us, like here we are at the end of 2020, and I can't wait to go over this list of episodes.
Yes. So what we're doing is we're really doing a recap to take you through the amazing episodes from this year. And if you haven't listened to all of them, this is really like a summary of what the year has been, which is to encourage you to go back and make sure you get all of these episodes and that you listen to all of them because we're just going to touch a little bit on each one. But sis, when we looked at this year and we looked at the first episode that we did this year, we started off the year with our good friend MJ Harris. My goodness. My goodness. We talked about the fact that you are your superpower and the gems that he brought to that conversation and his transparency in that conversation was just so powerful. He shared with us that not only were we excited to talk to him, but there was a moment in that episode where he said it was perfectly timed for him as well. You remember that?
I do. And he talks about operating in your authenticity. And I really decided to channel that. And I used that conversation multiple times throughout the year, understanding that perfect is the enemy and what it looks like to show up in a room unapologetically Candace. And, I've tried to subscribe to that for several years, but in 2020, I think people were getting the full version of me in every room. And a lot of that has to do with the conversation that we had with MJ at the beginning of the year.
I think we've carried that theme throughout. I think we were already there, but having that conversation with him just kind of elevated our commitment to that to the next level. And so after MJ's episode, then we had an opportunity to bring in a very special guest, which Sis' beautiful, beautiful daughter, one of the triplets, Kelsey Morgan, who was so amazing and wowed us so much. She is the only guest that we've ever had that we've done two back-to-back episodes with. And so I want to highlight just some of the things that Kelsey shared with us in those episodes, sis, because I think a lot of young people were really, really impacted by what she shared. And then it also led to some opportunities for her, which I want you to talk about too.
Absolutely. So she reminds me that she said, "Hey, I was able to do two episodes with you guys." She had so many gems, and I think for parents, just her willingness to talk to us. And one of the things that you said to her is, "We will ask some tough questions, and as parents, we have to be prepared to listen." And when she shared with us, how she feels about bullying and some of the challenges that she's faced, and how she stands up against it. So, what that did for Kelsey is it allowed her to then be very open to opportunities. And when she would see things happening within her school, she had the courage because she knows she was like, I was on a podcast talking to multiple people about it. And so, if you haven't gone back and really listened to that episode, she told us some things that I had no idea was happening with our young people. And then we touched on everything from depression to just image, self image, and confidence. And I'd love for you to share the difference between self esteem and self worth, sis, as you did on that episode, because people really need to hear. Kelsey, she references it often.
So I think it's important to raise the difference in between those two definitions because I think people use them interchangeably and they don't really understand the difference. And so self-esteem, I've met a lot of people who have what appears to be a healthy self-esteem. Like they feel good about themselves. They get up, they put themselves together, they do all the things that society says you should do to exhibit this confident person. But then when you have them talk about advocating for themselves or speaking to what they bring to the table or talking about their gifts and talents, they become uncomfortable. And that's self-worth. And so I think it's important to make sure you put a good, package together externally, but what's more important is do you understand the value that you bring from the inside out? And so I think that was something that we were able to talk to Kelsey about. She blew our minds with some of the things that she revealed through her transparency around the things that are going on in her friend circle and people in her school. And she really opened the door and created the space for us to learn as parents, the two of us, right, and other parents, how to have a conversation with your teen in a way that has significant impact.
And something that was born out of each episode as we're going through it. So I talked about channeling my inner MJ and operating in my authenticity. Well, one thing that Kelsey and I decided to start doing was the daily affirmations. And that's something that you can do with your children and particularly our daughters. We have to save our daughters. And as mothers, we have to really lead by example. So one of the things that we say daily is that I'm a wealth generator. I am God's best idea. I am one of God's best creations. And there's countless others. So that was something that we started to do and put into practice right after that episode.
Love it. So I need everybody to write those down, go back, let's do those again. I think those are beautiful, beautiful affirmations. And so it was so good the first episode that we had Kelsey come back and do a second episode just to continue the conversation. And once again, she did not disappoint. She delivered so poised, so mature. I think it was just awesome that she was able to share that with us. And so, coming off of Kelsey's episodes, which were so good, we took a completely different shift and we had the amazing Minda Harts on our podcast talking about her book, The Memo. So, do you remember what that was like, sis, to have Minda here and just have her just give so freely and transparently about her experience in corporate America as a woman of color?
Minda wrote the book that we had all been thinking, and she used her courage to put it out for the world to see. And she even talks about that on the episode. She just put it out there, and she didn't know, what would happen. So when you think about saying yes when you're afraid, we've referenced that on several episodes. That's exactly what she did. She had no idea what the feedback would be. But man, oh man, the feedback has been incredible, and other people
Man.
stepped up and really teaching women how to secure their seat.
Yeah, and not just that, but I think she's gone on to also highlight as part of the book that not just the importance of securing your seat, but what are you going to do when you get the seat? How are you going to create impact and change for others as you sit in those seats? And so it was, yeah, you remember the day when I called you and I said, "You've got to get this book." I literally was reading passages out of the book to you as you were driving.
Driving, and you said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm driving." You said, "Pull over."
Right, right. I was like, you have to hear this because she was, you know, that it was something that was just, there had to be some divine intervention in what she wrote because it touches so specifically a lot of the areas, thoughts that I think we've all experienced at some point or another on this journey. And so just love the book. And so we had to shout out Minda at the end of the year because she was a big part of our 2020 and want to make sure go get her book, The Memo. If you don't, if you've not read it, like do yourself a favor and go get it.
And once you get in the room, what do you do when you get in?
Yeah.
Yeah, once
Yeah.
you get the seat, don't become a seat warmer.
Yes. Oh, sis, remember we had that conversation. We were like, don't be the silk plant in the
Right.
corner. Make sure you're actually utilizing your space. So yeah, you're exactly right. And so, sis, we came off the episode with Minda, and then we shifted gears a little bit, and we talked about what happens when your passion can't wait. And our guest was GC Cash, who has so many talents, music industry, DJs, he was from a stockbroker, like so many varieties like of things that he was doing. Do you remember when he was just talking about how he had to seize the moment in front of him and utilize his network to kind of grow and shift out of what everybody thought he should be doing? And now he finds himself in this space where he's traveled with artists all over the world.
Yes, and one of the things that he mentioned was, you know, what is it that you want out of life? And when people ask you that question, as simple as it may sound, what do you want? Oftentimes they can't give you an answer. And so I think for him, he was traveling with all of these, wonderful artists, but he's at some point said, well, what is it that I want? And that's what led him to start doing, not just with DJing, but film,
Yeah.
and asking those tough questions. And then understanding that he mentioned music is a universal language. And
Mm-hmm.
understanding that we need to really expand who we are, stretch ourselves, really get outside of those comfort zones. So nugget after nugget was dropped. And then one of the things that I have to mention about that connection with GC is that he connected us to other people, which led to more guests on the podcast because
Mm-hmm.
that I see what you guys are doing, and I really want to support the efforts and the work and what you're putting into the world. And we always talk about collective win. Well, that's what it looks like.
Yeah. So we have to say thank you to GC because he
Yeah.
was integral in making some of these connections. And not only did he say that he would do it, but he did. And we have been able to meet some amazing people from our connection to him and his willingness to share. So for sure, we want to make sure that we give a special highlight in 2020 to GC Cash. And he became a dad. So congratulations with your new addition as well, GC. So sis, after GC, we came back home, right? And we had a conversation with Carol Coletta, who was just phenomenal on the podcast. So real. She even asked, she said, "Now, can I be an honorary sis after this?"
Yeah, Memphis's finest. She did. Just born and raised in the city that I grew up in, and then traveling to other cities, particularly in urban communities, and learning from those cities, and then taking her dream and bringing it back to this city. And we talked to her about equity and access for all, and for her to have this dream that in a city like Memphis, Tennessee, don't count us out. Her dream is so big to bring this city together. And I think that, by her wanting to do it outside, she's really ahead of her time, because who knew we were going into this pandemic? And she's redeveloping our parks. She talked a lot about real estate, but just understanding the landscape and working with city government. She too, again, every episode, but she poured so much into us, and really I feel, just don't ever give up on your dreams.
Yeah. The one thing that stuck out from the conversation, and there were many with Carol, was a couple of things. She said that people counted her out because her story was different from most, right? And they didn't believe that she would be able to push past some of her early challenges and still show up as a leader and do all the things that she's done across the country. But then the thing that I really remembered is she said, when people came at me that way, I thought, but I'm from Memphis. Do you remember when she said that? And she took that as a badge of honor.
I have the shirt.
Yes, I know, sis. You have the shirt that says "She from Memphis." It's a whole, it's a whole different existence. So when Carol said that, I immediately looked at you and I said, "Okay, so it's not just sis," because I think when she said that, even though those were her words, what she was really saying is, I come from a place where you have to have some grit. You have to have, the ability to persevere, and so she really credited that with a lot of her success. So it was an amazing episode. We wanted to highlight some local amazing women, and we did that a little bit later in the season as well. But we came from the conversation with Carol, and then we talked to one of our good friends, Kibi Anderson, who did amazing work with Red Table Talk. My goodness. And then brought in her dream of creating 100 billionaires in her lifetime. So that got us really excited. Um, so yeah, remember that conversation with Kibi, sis?
Yes, and I love when Kiwi talked about, starting very young, going to Singapore at 16, and just remembering how just being open to that at a very young age, and what that did. It just opened up her world to new opportunities. And then something else that stood out about her episode is when she, moved from New York to LA, and how, people were saying you probably shouldn't do that. Is this
Hmm.
what you really want to do? And do you really know enough about that? And she did it anyways.
So sometimes you have to go against the grain. And there were many things that came out of that conversation, but that was one of the things that she said. And even in some later episodes, we've heard other people say that who made shifts in their career that it was against really the advice of other people, but they made the move anyway, and they won as a result of doing that. And so many gems in the episode with Kibi, but I think that's one particular to 2020 that people will be able to apply over and over again. It may not make sense, but sometimes you got to do it anyway.
And something else that she mentioned, because we titled it From Harvard to the Red Table, she talked about the power of her circle. That's been a common thread in all of these conversations
Yes.
come up, the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah. Well, you know how we feel about that, sis. Like, it's the whole reason why this podcast was born, was because the conversations that we have and the way that we have shown up for one another year after year after year after year is a testament to, I think, a lot of the reason why we've had the confidence to do a lot of the things that we've done is because we have each other as that resource. And so when Kiba brought that forward, and the fact that we met her in, one interaction, and there was this immediate connection, and once again her willingness to pour in and give back, maintain that connection, I think it was just a beautiful thing from the very beginning when we first met her. And so Love, love, love Key B. Was so happy that we were able to have her this year. And then we talked to an energy powerhouse right after Key B. Meredith, Meredith Moore Crosby was our next guest, and we talked about getting unstuck. So, of course, there was lots of alignment on that episode because she's just a ball of energy. And so I have to tell you this: if you are not following her and getting her Monday motivation messages, I think it's at Meredith Moore Crosby is her IG. Make sure you do that because she'll get you going on a Monday for sure.
Yeah, Monday motivation with Meredith is gets me up and going, pumps me up for the day. And some of the things that Meredith talked about was being the first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Walking into that room. But one of the things that I think she does such a great job at is perspective, how she looks at things. And, that is a lesson because things are going to happen, and it's how you look at it. And I know people know that, but I just have to say it over and over again. And on that episode, when she talked about, her being a vegan, but working for McDonald's, I want you
Right.
to think about that.
Right, right. And still finding a way to have passion in that space. But then she also helped navigate through some of the challenges that she faced, being one of the few, and in some cases, the only person of color in the workplace. And some of the challenges that came with that, and how she had to really dig deep to navigate through some of those spaces. It was a powerful episode for
And
sure.
the youngest too,
And the
sis.
youngest, yeah. Yeah, so to lead the way, to be the youngest, to be one of the few, and in some cases the only, in an environment where you may not always have the support you need, but still find a way to win, I think that was also something that we saw come through a number of episodes. And so, yeah, her transparency was amazing, was amazing. And so, who do we have next after Meredith, sis?
Kayla Rodriguez Graf. And
The pause after her name.
let me tell you, powerhouse,
Yes.
hilarious. She's so funny. I remember going back listening to the episode and I just couldn't stop laughing. But we talked about the best place for a woman is in the C-suite. And
Mm,
just her tenacious attitude towards these conversations when she's in the room with investors, and just being in this male dominated industry and going from corporate America, to starting her own business, and the amount of money that Kayla has been able to raise,
mm,
ranking her in one of the top female people in the country. I just, man, you cannot do anything but respect it. You can't respect
mhm,
anything but her grind, her professionalism. And I guess, back to, even with the Carol episode, and they know each other, but about being counted out. Kayla was talking about how many times she's been in a room and started talking, and they're like, but can we talk to someone else? Can we talk
right.
to my brother? She's like, but I'm the CEO. Well, can
And
we
the
just
founder.
yeah, I'm the founder. No, can we talk to a different person? And so what does that look like? And how do you, keep showing up when people try to water you down?
The one thing that I have replayed in my head over and over again, because we asked her, what is it like to walk in those rooms where people don't respect you as a founder, as a CEO of a multi-million dollar company? And she said, it's a gift. I want them to put all of the ugly on the table, all of it. She said, because then I know what I'm dealing with. And so I have used that phrase so many times, sis. I'm like, no, throw all the ugly on the table. I want to see
Show me
it.
you're ugly. Yeah.
Show me your ugly. And yeah, so she took a place in a position of power in that area, which I think is a lesson to so many women, because I'm sure it could be disheartening, and in some cases maybe even intimidating for people to not give you, the respect that you've worked so hard to earn. So I loved how she just took control of that situation, and really just walked in her power in that situation. So that was an amazing conversation. And she also is a mom like us, and so we were able to talk about balancing motherhood
Yeah.
and being in business at the same time. So
She has a
shout
new
out to
baby.
Kayla.
She has a new baby, and she still
I
took the time
know.
to spend the day with us. So yeah.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. So happy that we were able to have her on the show this year. And so after Kayla, and we're already laughing because if you have not listened to this episode,
your whole life. Like,
Like
you will get
we
your
talked about the gift of owning your story with Gina Neely. And all I can say is I wish we had been recording before we started and after we were done recording, because she just continued to give, like, through laughter and joy, and share very powerful moments with us, extremely transparent moments with us that I know impacted every person who listened to that episode. Specifically, the question we asked her around who would she have dinner with. So I won't ruin it. We won't ruin it on this episode, but go back and listen to that episode. The one thing that I think I learned from talking to Gina, and you and I talked about this, sis, was you can see that she's in at this place in her life where she understands that her voice is the most important, and she's not willing to relinquish that position in her life. It was just like a peace that she had when she was talking, and this certainty about who she is, which was just amazing to watch and capture in that episode. I know we were laughing a lot, but what did you take away from the conversation?
so many things that, she's a ball of energy. You really want to just keep talking to her. You really want to bottle up her energy. She has a $1 million smile, and she will make you laugh. I say that humor is good for the soul. It really is, and laughter is. But a couple of things, and you've mentioned it. She talks about forgiveness and apologizing to people when we get it wrong, and that's always something that we shy away from, because we
Mm-hmm.
talk about when you get it wrong and going back and admitting it and then making things right. So I loved our conversation around forgiveness. And then I also, again, I won't spoil it. You have to go back and listen. But when we ask her about legacy, she talks
Mm,
about evolution of self, and she's not done. She's like, I'm
right.
still going. I'm still defining what that looks like. And so for people of all ages and all backgrounds and all industries, you will not put her in a box. She said, the best is yet to come.
Yeah. And I love that because I think at a certain place, people feel like you've reached their idea of what success looks like and that they're done. And she's like, no, I'm redefining success every day. And I'm finding new things to do every day and continuing to, put herself in different spaces that allow her to utilize her gifts and talents. So many lessons in that episode. And then we talked about the race to stay relevant with Janae Bolden. And the one thing that I remember, sis, that you and I went back and we talked about after her episode was how she unapologetically found a way to talk specifically about the women in her circle and what it is that they bring to the world. And so I know we talk about, surrounding yourself with people who never miss an opportunity to mention your name in rooms where you may not be there. Well, she perfectly exhibited that on the episode that we had with her.
She did. And I will not forget that. And I know that women are doing the same thing for her. So go back, listen to that episode. She highlights them, and she made sure that she created a space where we're aligned with those women. Sis, you do that all the time. We were just talking about matching skill sets, and you never miss an opportunity to say, okay, this person needs to be aligned with this person. And I think we need more of that. And she also talked about something that we've been talking more and more about in corporate America, which is the natural hair journey, and being really open to have that conversation, because it is a touchy subject for us.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so she's created a whole initiative around this. And so she's even created some jewelry that we talked about as it pertains to this journey as well. And so that was the one thing that Minda discussed in her book as well. So it's a theme that pulled through into the conversation with Janae. And in her day-to-day life, she's responsible for figuring out things that are most relevant and top of mind from a newsworthy standpoint and what's relevant. And so the fact that even in that space of where she works, she still went back to the importance of her circle and her friends and her relationship with her mom, and the fact that her mom is one of her, top critics that keeps her on her toes. She was just very real very real in a world and in the industry where maybe that's not always celebrated. So that was something that was amazing to see from her.
And she mentioned that even with being with Boss Up, she talked about making sure that you do everything with integrity,
Mm-hmm.
not just taking this story that, you know, you vet the work and you always come from a place of respect and integrity. And I can appreciate that. That's why we call it the race to stay relevant. She's not just putting stuff out there.
Yeah.
We definitely live in a world of, you know, we just want to be first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't
Yes.
mean quality or have to
Yes.
be right. We just
Like, but are you ready to be first? Like, that's the question. Like, can you get out here and say something when you're first? I think people just, to your point, they just want to get out there. And so, lots of gems in her episode. And so, right after Janae, like, we kind of stayed in this place of entertainment, and we had a conversation with Sue Solo.
influencer of the year, the
Yes,
on a billboard, Sue Solo,
yes.
so much energy.
Syndicated radio, talk show host.
Uh, on the radio, just yeah,
If unapologetic was a person, Sue
yes,
Solo.
yes.
Also called herself your favorite Ethiopian, right? Which was amazing. But what was really powerful about Sue's story is that she played her position when a lot of people counted her out or may not have realized that what she was doing was strategic. She talked about spending 9 years working as the person at the front door of some of Atlanta's most exclusive events. But in that time, she was learning, she was creating relationships, she was figuring out what she ultimately wanted out of life. And she utilized her experience at the door, right, to start opening her own doors. And so playing your position no matter where it is was one of the just the powerful takeaways from the conversation with Sue.
And cultivating relationships and understanding your brand
Mm-hmm.
and your brand equity because we heard about that last night and that just stuck with me because Sue touches on that. She said, I will not put my name on anything if it's not done with quality. I will not support an event if it's not done right. So I think that was just some of the conversation that really stuck with me. And then also when she talked about self-care and going and talking to someone and understanding,
Yeah,
yes, and how
she sure
important
did.
protecting your mental health and that space. And it took her to get to this year, 2020, just
Mm-hmm.
to realize that.
Yeah, that's true. I think that has been the theme this year. Is like the pandemic in 2020 has really put us all in this place where people are just more transparent. They understand that that's where the gold is, right? That's where the value is telling all parts of your story and sharing, some of your struggles and the things that you've done to overcome them. That's what really resonates with people. And so each of our guests this year, they've done that in some way or another. They've brought those stories forward. And I think we saw that significantly in our episode that came after Sue, and that was with Joy Brown.
Yes. And no, listen,
You
okay.
have to take a pause. You just have to take a pause because
I have to pause for joy. Um, I just wanted to say one more thing about what you just said about 2020 and the year for all of us. The way that I would say it is, 2020 was the year for most people where we just put everything on the table, right? This was the year of putting everything on the table. And when you think about, and this is funny because if I could flip my camera around, right now I'm sitting at my dining room table.
right.
What is interesting, and I had this moment this morning, was you know, I'd never used this room. I never used my dining room. I've lived in this house 14 years, never used the dining room. And then when I was forced to use it, I did. And there's stuff all over this table. And I think that's been the year for everyone. It's the year we
Mm-hmm.
just put it all on the table. Now, you might not like what you see, it may not be pretty, but it is a full autopsy of your house, your life. You were forced to put it all on the table. And so then that takes me right to joy. I
Yeah.
feel personally that because we were all willing to put it on the table, because we're in this place of openness and learning and just being completely transparent, God aligns us to then get people like Joy, right? And her name is who she is. She brings joy when you talk to her. We would have never been prepared for those opportunities and those conversations if we were doing it the old way,
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
afraid to put it on the table and put it out there. And we had the mask and we would never be blessed to meet
Yeah.
people like Joy because we wouldn't be ready. We weren't
Yeah.
prepared for those conversations. I don't
Yeah.
know how you feel about it, but that for me is like that's why God continues to put these people in my life now because I
Yeah.
wasn't ready before. I wasn't ready for the magnitude of the blessing.
And I don't think the conversations would have been as rich.
No,
They
they
wouldn't have been as rich.
because
They
what do you
wouldn't have
have
been.
the substance to bring to the conversation if you
Yeah.
haven't had any real experiences? If
Hmm.
everything's always pretty, what exactly are you talking about?
Right. Nothing. You're talking about surface level stuff. You're laughing, but nothing. And so it was just beautiful to watch all of these amazing people that we interviewed take their defenses down, right? Just open themselves up to us and to our listeners and share just, I mean, you got to keep in mind some of the people that we talk to. I mean, we're talking about Joy Brown, right? And she doesn't even, she will minimize what she brings to the
Google
table.
her.
But
That's all I can say is Google her.
just
Like
Google,
just
just,
Google.
just Google her.
Just
But
Google.
in her episode, she just shared so much with us, and I think the title of the episode like perfectly sums her up. She is the real deal, and not just in the way that you think, right? Because she has years of accolades in her industry, because she's had firsthand, experience and influence over several people that you know in the music industry. But when she talked about who she is as a person, who she is as a mom, like what she wants to give to the world, and her commitment to making sure that she pays attention to the people that nobody else pays attention to, the people that do the work behind the scenes and make things happen. It was just amazing.
She is the definition of giving a voice to the voiceless.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
she will make sure that you're heard. And, we have all these people jockeying to be first and talking about getting into these rooms. Joy wants you to know and understand the people that are behind those folks getting in the room. I love that. Who's behind the creative?
Yes.
I've often said it's so funny. Um, you know, we cannot go an episode. And we did it on our last one. We didn't reference Beyonce, but I think it's time right now.
Yeah,
I
we must to
can
take a pause.
pause.
I'm gonna take a sip from my Queen Bee mug.
Wait a minute. But I can remember, sis, when we were at the Beyonce concert, and it took her 90 seconds to put on that red latex. Do you remember that?
And you said, listen, if anybody can do that and you
Right.
don't put some respect, you're hating.
So if you hate on Beyonce, I will send you the picture of her in the red latex. If you because I can't use any red latex. Right? And I said to myself, who helped, right? And we
Yeah.
don't talk about those people because she did it within a matter of seconds. She had to go
Yep.
behind the stage and someone had to help her. And they had baby powder on standby
She had four people.
and they slid her into that. And I say all of that to say, Joy is making sure that all of these people that are behind the creative, that they have a voice.
Hmm.
And, you just won't find many people like that to promote other people for real and put them out front. So I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
And create initiatives to do so with
Right.
co-creators and all of the amazing things that she's doing. And then now to be in this place where you're giving back not just to the people that are assisting in these rooms, but cultivating the next generation.
And everybody doesn't want to be in the spotlight. I've heard people say that. Like, I don't want to be on stage,
Hmm.
and that's okay. I want to be behind the camera. And but we would need to know who those people are when they run those credits.
Absolutely. Well, she is their champion,
Yeah.
no doubt about that. And then that brought us to the last interview that we did this year, Lonnie Phillips. Oh my goodness. That's all I can say is,
But
oh my goodness.
well, we didn't know this when we were doing the interview. So you guys, we started out the year, with the title of "You Are Your Superpower."
Mm-hmm.
And then Lonnie says on our last episode, "Take back your power."
Mm.
In case you forgot, along this journey, along this year, it's time.
Mm-hmm.
And That episode was so emotional and so raw and so real for us that now what I know we have to do is our work isn't done. We have to continue to level up. She talked about the blueprint and not having one, but she's giving it to us. She's handed it's a gift. Go do this. Don't overthink it. She's telling you exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, which so few people will do. They will
Right.
tell you, you know, the top layer of their journey, and that's it. But not only did she share that, but she provided action steps. She gave you strategy. She told you exactly what to do, which I hope people understand the importance of the gift that she gave, the several gifts that she gave in that episode. And we really had to push through that episode, sis, because we were so emotional and just blown away by her level of just being selfless in
Right.
what she provided.
Because people have to pay for that kind of information.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And she shared it with us and with you selflessly. So it was the perfect way to wrap up the conversations that we had this year. Definitely make sure that you go back and I would recommend starting at the beginning of the year with MJ and then working your way throughout the episodes through the course of this year. I'm amazed as I sit here and we reflect, sis, that in spite of everything that happened this year, to still be committed to having these conversations and now to be at this place in the year and look back and see how relevant and timely those conversations were. That was divine. That was divine.
I'm forever changed.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. And so, so much so, we had to make sure that we did a bonus episode, this one, where we just shared our reflections with you and where we took an intentional look back at all of the amazing people that walked through this journey with us during this year of pandemic and that we took the time and space to honor this experience because it's been unlike any other. It's been unlike any other, but I've learned a lot, and I know you've said that you've learned a lot this year as well, sis. And I think I didn't even know that it would be possible for us to become closer, but I think this year we have on so many other levels that we didn't even anticipate. And so that's one of the greatest blessings that I'll take out of 2020 is that it may have been a tough year, but I was able to navigate it with an amazing circle and have these opportunities to just become closer to you as a sister. So that was the ultimate gift this year.
I couldn't agree more. And to just think, sis, when we were, sitting in Starbucks and should we do it? Should we not? Should we
Right?
upload the video and start the podcast? And we did it. And to be here now, we are so much closer and we were already so close. But I think
Mm-hmm.
just allowing ourselves to tap into places that we didn't even know existed and being really open to it and leading every situation, showing up, being very intentional for one another. I just couldn't do this thing without you. I'm just so blessed. Love you so much.
Oh,
Um,
love you too, sis.
I'm just looking forward to what's about to happen in our lives because I believe that that's what we've been just gearing up for.
Mm-hmm.
We will not look back on this year and say that it was a flop because
Oh.
of what we just saw and
Mm-hmm.
we started talking through this. It's been like a one episode's been building off the next on the next. It's just been this really cool cadence that we couldn't have planned. So
Mm-hmm.
the word that you used is perfect. It's
Yeah.
divine.
Yeah, so good. So I'm excited about 2021. I think this year is still the year of perfect vision. I know we've been saying that even with all the challenges. And so I can't wait to see what comes next. What comes next. Looking forward to season three. Sis, can you believe it? Season three. We're going into season three.
Come on, season three.
Can't believe it.
We're
It
straight
seems like we were just
professionals out here.
I mean, right? Like it's the end of the calendar year, so now we move into our next season. And so I think as long as we continue to, keep our intentions as they have been already, and that's about impact and making sure that we put good things out there, that I can't wait to see what's to come. But I know it's going to be great. And I know that it's going to be with you, so that's going to make it even better. So it's been a great 2020, and I'm looking forward to 2021.
Amen. Amen. And the best is yet to come. And I'm so glad for our listeners to stay on this journey with us. And I just want to send them a special thank you for
Mm.
being with us on this journey and continuing to ask people to subscribe to the Just Be Real Sis podcast, because here is where we're creating impact and really leading with change. So that sounded like a commercial and not on
It's not.
purpose.
Hey, did y'all get that? Honey, go back and listen to that. That was a whole, that might be our commercial for 2021.
Um,
I'm just saying.
So just so thankful for our subscribers and our listeners and how they've
Yeah.
continued to support and share, because that's what it's all about. That is
Well,
exactly.
sis, I think that you bring up a good point, right? They are so important. So let's, because we would normally give tips. I think it's important coming out of 2020 that we give some action items or things that we challenge our listeners to do coming into the new year. So one of those things that you brought up was taking your power back, which we got from Lonnie. So this year, take your power back. Don't limit yourself to the expectations or the opinions of other people. Get really, really clear around what it is that you want and what does that look like and how do you get there. And so take your power back. If you had to choose one lesson, sis, to give to the listeners to take them into the coming year, what would you give them?
It's simple. The title of the episode: Just Be Real.
Mm,
Best version of you. That's it. Just
that's
be
it,
real.
sis.
Like, stop trying to be who everyone else wants you to be. Just be.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, there's nothing else to say about that other than happy 2020 and happy new year. We're looking forward to seeing you in season 3.
Yes, I cannot wait to see you guys in season 3.
Don't forget to subscribe and share so we can grow this movement. If you have show ideas or would like to be considered as a special guest, you can email us at justberealsis@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Just Be Real Sis Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. As always, remember to serve first, stay encouraged, be kind, and just be real, sis.